Senator Slotkin.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Secretary, I said in your hearing, when you had your confirmation hearing, that my biggest concern with you at the helm was the potential use of the military in ways that contradict the Constitution or that taint what I hope we all want, which is an apolitical military.
What you're about to hear is one of the most disturbing Senate exchanges we've seen in years. A U.S. senator asked a simple question: can the American military arrest or shoot American protesters? And Trump's defense secretary could not, or would not say no. This wasn't a slip of the tongue. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a warning sign.
And when I asked you about whether you would accept an order that was actually given to your predecessor, Secretary Esper, Trump's SecDef, to deploy active duty troops against unarmed protesters and to, in Secretary Esper's words, shoot at them, shoot at their legs, you said this was all theoretical. Here we are, a few months later, you've deployed 4,700 troops to Los Angeles and against the wishes of the governor. And my colleague across the aisle was right. It is the first time since 1965 that we have deployed Guard troops without the permission of the governor. In all the instances he laid out, the president had sent in the military to protect protesters, not against the protesters. So you may dismiss it, but I feel like this is a fundamental issue of American democracy. If you love your country and you want an apolitical military, then it should be the last resort, not the first resort in our country to use them. So to get to the non-theoretical, have you authorized the uniformed military to detain or arrest protesters in Los Angeles?
Senator, I would just start by saying you're not a protester if you're throwing concrete
100%.
at law
Arrest those
enforcement
people.
officers.
Throw them in the jail. 100%. But what you're doing is something different. Everyone knows this is a political decision, right? So we don't trust that you're using the best interests of the military, certainly, and of democracy on top of that. So have you given the order? That's all I want to know. It's not theoretical. For the U.S. military, not law enforcement. They can arrest all day long. That's their job. Do they have the ability, the uniformed military, to arrest and detain protesters currently today? It's a yes or no thing. Authority.
It's sort of amusing the extent to which the speculation is out there. These troops are given very clear orders.
Then what is the order? Then list it out for us. Be a man. List it out. Did you authorize them to detain or arrest? That is a fundamental issue of democracy. I'm not trying to be a snot here. I'm just trying to get the actual. Did you authorize them to do that?
All of these orders and what they're sent there to do are public. They are there
so say it. So say it. Yes or no?
I'd like to.
Please, yes or no?
As I've said time and time again through interruption, they're there to protect law enforcement,
do they have
ICE
the ability
officers
to arrest?
Who are trying to do their job, deporting illegals who were allowed in by the previous administration.
So they cannot arrest and detain citizens of the United States, the uniformed military.
As we've stated, if necessary, in their own self-defense, they could temporarily detain and hand over to ICE. But there's no arresting going on. And you know this better than you're trying to play political games. There's no arresting of U.S. personnel.
Of the U.S. military against members of the protest. Have you authorized U.S. military cyber tools to investigate people participating in these protests? Yes or no?
Certainly in no way that I'd be aware of.
Okay, that's good. I love that answer. That's great. Have you given the order to be able to shoot at unarmed protesters in any way? I'm just asking the question. Don't laugh. Like the whole country. And by the way, my colleagues across the aisle.
What is that based on? What evidence would you have that an order like that has ever been given?
Giving that order to your predecessor, to a Republican Secretary of Defense, who I give a lot of credit to because he didn't accept the order. He had more guts and balls than you because he said, I'm not going to send in the uniformed military to do something that I know in my gut isn't right. He was asked to shoot at their legs. He wrote that in his book. That's not hearsay. So your poo-pooing of this, it just shows you don't understand who we are as a country, who we are. And all of my colleagues across the aisle, especially the ones that served, should want an apolitical military and not want citizens to be scared of their own military. I love the military. I served alongside my whole life, so I'm worried about you tainting it. Have you given the order Have you given the order that they can use lethal force against honor? I want the answer to be no. Please tell me it's no. Have you given the order?
Senator, I'd be careful what you read in books and believing it, except for the Bible.
Oh, my God. So your former predecessor, I guess that's not enough for you. Okay, on Iran. I don't think there's a debate. There's like a catfight going on in your own party about whether to go after Iran. Have you commissioned any day after planning? So any force protection, any use of ground troops in Iran, any cost assessments? Because I don't think we doubt what we can do as a country in the attack. It's the day after with Iraq and Afghanistan that so many of us have learned to be so deeply concerned about. Have you authorized day after planning?
As I've said, we have plans for everything, Senator.
Okay.
And I would also reiterate how we began, that there will be a classified portion of this 15 minutes after we adjourn.
There's a reason this exchange feels different from the usual partisan noise in Washington. It's because it cuts straight to one of the most fragile foundations of American democracy, the separation between military power and civilian life. For generations, that separation has been treated as sacred, not because the military can't be trusted, but because no democracy survives once military force becomes a routine answer to political or social problems. That's not a left-wing idea. That's not a progressive talking point. That's a lesson written in blood across history. Senator Slotkin understood that. You could hear it in her voice. This wasn't performative outrage. This was someone who has spent her life alongside service members, someone who understands exactly what it means when soldiers are put in situations they were never meant to handle. And that's why her questions were so specific, so direct, so uncomfortable. She wasn't asking whether violent criminals should be arrested. Of course they should. She wasn't defending chaos or destruction. What she was asking was far more fundamental. Who decides when the military gets involved, and where does that authority stop? And that's where everything fell apart. Because when the Secretary of Defense cannot clearly state that U.S. troops will not be used to arrest American citizens, when he refuses to rule out detention of protesters, when he laughs off concerns about lethal force instead of shutting them down unequivocally, that's not reassurance, that's erosion. The most dangerous moments in a democracy aren't loud. They're quiet. They happen when norms are bent just enough that people start adjusting to them, when extraordinary measures start feeling routine, when ambiguity replaces clarity. We're told, don't worry, this is just temporary. We're told, you're overreacting. We're told, trust us. But trust is earned through transparency, and transparency is exactly what was missing in this hearing. What Hegseth revealed wasn't a clear doctrine. It wasn't a firm commitment to constitutional limits. It was a mindset that treats dissent as a nuisance, oversight as an annoyance, and questions as political attacks rather than democratic obligations. And here's the part that should unsettle everyone. Once you normalize the idea that the military can detain civilians temporarily, once you normalize soldiers handing people over to immigration authorities, once you normalize troops being deployed over the objection of elected state leaders, you don't get to pretend this is still business as usual. Because power never moves backward on its own. It only retreats when it's challenged. Slotkin wasn't just pushing back for herself. She was pushing back for future lawmakers who may not have the leverage or courage to ask these questions. She was trying to draw a line now, before the next escalation, before the next justification, before the next crisis gets used as an excuse. And let's be clear, if the roles were reversed, if a Democratic president deployed troops this way, many of the same people dismissing these concerns today would be calling it tyranny. And they would be right to ask hard questions. Democracy doesn't belong to one party. The Constitution doesn't change based on who's in power. And the rules don't get rewritten just because it's politically convenient. What makes this moment so unsettling isn't what definitively happened, it's what wasn't ruled out. The silence, the hedging, the refusal to say the words that would have ended the controversy instantly. No, The military will not be used against American protesters. That answer never came. And when it doesn't come from the person overseeing the most powerful military on Earth, that should stop us in our tracks. An apolitical military isn't a luxury. It isn't outdated. It's the difference between a republic and something else entirely. Citizens should never feel fear when they see soldiers deployed at home. Soldiers should never be put in a position where their mission conflicts with the values they swore to defend. And elected officials should never be mocked for demanding clarity on matters of life, liberty, and force. This hearing wasn't just a clash of personalities. It was a stress test. And what it revealed is that some of the guardrails we've relied on for decades are weaker than we thought. The question now is whether Senator Slotkin asked the right questions. She did. The question is whether the rest of us are willing to pay attention before the answers stop being optional. If this conversation made you uncomfortable, good. That discomfort is the point. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, share this with someone who thinks it could never happen here, and drop a comment, because the more we talk about this, the harder it becomes to normalize. Democracy doesn't disappear overnight. It fades when people stop demanding answers. And that's one thing we cannot afford to do.